What's up, YouTube? This is Joey Boy, and we finally got that Team of the Week video for you guys. So, for this Team of the Week, I thought we'd go with Offensive Rain, since last time we covered Sand in that Team Building with Joey Boy video. So, yeah, we've got Offensive Rain for you guys. This is a quick look at the team before we get into how I built it and how it works. You'll see it's all very quick. I think this last guy might be cut off a little bit, but it is a Focus Sash Breloom with Spore, Focus Punch, Bullet Seed, and Mach Punch. So there you go. This is a look at the team. We got the Stealth Rock Setter and Garchomp, Spinner, Double Dance Thundurus, and with that look, let's get right into how I built it. So, I built this team with the upcoming Suspect test in mind. Back when the Landers Suspect test was just announced, I wanted to build a new Offensive Rain team for me to use and abuse. And so, there's only one Pokemon you can start with, the Toad, Politoed. And, you know, it's going to be Offensive Rain, and offensive Politoeds tend to be choiced in some way, so I had to narrow down between a choice Scarf or choice Specs. Not the choice band. So these were the two choices I was going back and forth with, and I decided not to pick one until I messed around more with the team. So I started thinking about ways to abuse the rain, and I decided I want to try and maybe use a Keldeo-less rain team. Because, I mean, Keldeo's on so many teams. I think I've said it in almost every video of mine lately, how big a threat Keldeo is. But I thought the second biggest abuser of rain is the Thunder Genie, Thundurus-Therian form. And there's a certain set of his that I find to be one of the most threatening setup sweepers in the game. The set I am alluding to is Double Dance Thundurus. I have been using Double Dance Thundurus for a long time, actually. I utilized it on a lot of my really strong teams earlier in the metagame. So what this set is Agility, Nasty Plot, Thunder or Thunderbolt, and Hidden Power Ice. And for those of you who don't know, Double Dance Pokemon, Pokemon like Terrakion, which runs Swords Dance and Rock Polish, they are used because it gives them more flexibility and allows them to be used in a lot of different ways. For example, if you're against an offensive team, like maybe a rival offensive rain team, and Thundurus is only going to get one chance to maybe set up, you set up an agility. And then hopefully you'll be able to sweep through the rest of his team, his or her team, with your high speed. Then again, if you're up against a defensive team, you have Nasty Plot to turn up your special attack and just destroy. That said, their Thundurus is really quite cool because it's got a great defensive typing. It shares it with Zapdos, and as I'm sure many of you know, Zapdos is a great defensive Pokemon. So, this Double Dancer, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten up multiple setups. You know, you can, for example, if there is a Ferrothorn that doesn't have Leech Seed, it is free setup, and you can set up an Agility and a Nasty Plot. Syllabies are free sets up. You know, even if they carry Thunder Wave, they can't get you because of Volt Absorb. Plus, Thundurus with Thunder is so strong. A modest 252 Thunder is like a 50% chance to KO Choice Banded Scizor with Stealth Rocks. Not even with Life Orb, no nasty plots, nothing. Just Thunder in the rain crushes Pokemon who don't resist it. So again, with Double Dancers, I like to go with a bulkier spread because you have agility to boost your speed. So this is the spread I tend to run. With 108 speed EVs, after an agility, nothing's going to be outspeeding you. And that HP goes a long way in setting up. And leftovers. A lot of you might think it's kind of strange that I don't maybe have Life Orb or Lumberry right here. And while those do have their positives, I think leftovers is just so key. It allows Thundurus to stay around much longer. So this is the Pokemon I decided would be my finisher if I had one. And then I was just thinking of what this team would need. You know, I'm on offensive rain team. I thought about maybe sticking Ferrothorn on here to lay entry hazards, and you know, I kept thinking over and over, and I decided I didn't want to use Ferrothorn. Even though a lot of offensive rain teams will still carry it, I decided I would use the premier offensive steel Pokemon, Scizor. Because Choice Banded Scizor, standard as you can get, is so helpful on offensive rain teams. It covers a lot of threats. You can just bring it on Syllabi. You don't even really have to worry about Hidden Power Fire. It gives you great ability to check a lot of Pokemon with Choice Banded Technician Bullet Punch. So that was the next Pokemon I added, was the Choice Banded Scizor. You know, you can even Pursuit Trap the Latias and Latios twins, and it really brings a lot of utility. So these were the three Pokemon. Remember again, Politoed has not really chosen what set it's going to be running. And I needed the next Pokemon, and I decided to use a Pokemon that I've been having a lot of fun with on other teams. You guys have heard me spouting his praises before, but it's Analytic, Analytic Life Orb Starmie. There has always been offensive Starmies, but recently in Black and White 2, I know I've been seeing a lot more of defensive Starmies. You know, it makes it a much better check to things like Heatran and Keldeo because it can recover and it has leftovers. But I threw that out the window and I said I want to use a super offensive Starmie in the rain and see what I can do. So, plus it gives Rapid Spin support, and it is, again, in my opinion, the best offensive Rapid Spinner we have until maybe Extra Drill gets unbanned. Please no. So I went with Hydro Pump and Ice Beam, and then, as you'll have seen if you were looking on the team preview when I was showing you guys, I actually went with Thunderbolt. This is a personal decision. You know, a lot of people would say you're running rain, why not use Thunder, like on Thundurus? But Starmie really likes to get spins off, and the major reason why you run Analytic Life Orb Starmie is to 2-hit KO Jellicents on the switch with your electric move. And Jellicents are used a lot on Sandstall teams. Sandstall teams are a big threat to offensive rain teams. They carry, you know, all the checks they need to your Pokemon, they tend to, and they will begin racking up entry hazard damage because it's so hard to spin against Jellicent. So I went with Thunderbolt just because I don't want to risk that 30% miss chance if it is a Jellicent in the sand. plus Thunderbolt does what it needs to do. So those are the reasons why I run Thunderbolt over Thunder. Again, to reiterate, it's mostly because of Jellicents in the sand. I want a guaranteed way to remove them so I can begin spinning against Sandstall and Sand Balance teams even. So there's 4 Pokemon, all very offensive already, and now I need to start thinking about entry hazards, as any offensive team does. Now I had not planned on having a Ghost type Pokemon because, again, the really only good ones you can have are Jellicent and Gengar in OU, and Jellicent is defensive, and I didn't really want to use Gengar. I already have an offensive rain team with the Gengar, and so I wanted to try something a little new. So I decided I wasn't going to be running Spikes. I would only need Stealth Rock, because I will not be able to block enemy spinners. So I started thinking about offensive Stealth Rock setters, and you know, there's the classic ones like Terrakion, and Landorus is another big one, and they're both really good on offensive rain teams. But I decided I want to do something else. I decided to go for a Pokemon that we're seeing a lot more used as an offensive Stealth Rock setter. I went with Garchomp. And I don't have great reasons why I chose this. I chose it, number one, because Jirachi would be a problem for me. Just because it's so annoying. Since I'm setting up Rain on my own, I want a strong ground attack to hit it. And since I wanted a strong ground attack, it was between Garchomp and Landorus, but I decided to go with the more offensive of the two. Landorus T sure is offensive, but it does not compete with Garchomp's Dragon and Ground Stabs and that 102 base speed. Even though it's not as good as it used to be, it's still very offensive. And the item I went for was Yache Berry, an old fan favorite from Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. Garchomps, more often than not, do not use it. In 5th gen, you see a lot of Choice Scarfs, and Rocky Helmet is another one that's used a lot. But I decided I wanted to go for a more standard, or maybe old standard, I should say, of Yache Sword Stance Garchomp, because it can be such a threat against defensive teams. Again, if they don't have something like Skarmory, it will be doing a whole lot of damage. So I went with Sword Stance, Earthquake, Outrage, and Stealth Rocks. And again, another very standard spread. We have a lot of standard offensive spreads on this team, besides maybe Thundurus. And Garchomp is really cool as a Stealth Rocker, because it does force so many switches because of its damage output that you can get those rocks up without having to worry too much. Plus, if you need to get the rocks up, almost nothing will be one-hit KOing this Garchomp thanks to Yache Berry. Of course, you still have to be careful of the choice specs Latioses and Latias, because Draco Meteor will definitely be taking Garchomp out in one hit. Garchomp is also another really solid check to Sun teams. They rarely have a real answer to it. They just have to check it with faster offensive Pokemon, and then you can just switch out. So it really helps in taking out those Sun teams. Plus, Xatu will not really be able to magic bounce these rocks away because you just set up a Sword Stance and go to town on them. So Garchomp was added as the Stealth Rock setter for its ground type coverage, its ability to Sword Stance up, and to just manhandle Sun teams. So we're looking at 5 Pokemon now, and something I was looking at that might still be a problem is Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn is something all rain teams have to take into consideration, just because it can be just a huge thorn in your butt. You usually, because you can't abuse your own fire attacks since you're the one bringing the rain up, It has so many great resistances. You know, it can come in on Starmie pretty easily. Thundurus has to set up numerous nasty plots to really start denting it with its attacks. Garchomp does okay if it can set up a Swords Dance and start hitting Earthquakes, but Ferrothorn will still be doing its job against most of these Pokemon, so I decided to add the Pokemon that really goes to town on Ferrothorn. I decided to add Breloom. And as you guys saw on some of my other teams, I have a recent infatuation with Focus Sash Breloom. I just think it is a really cool mon that helps out offensive teams to no end. Spore, for offensive teams, is practically a one-hit KO move, just because if you keep offensive momentum up, you can keep that Pokemon asleep for the rest of the game. So I decided to go with Focus Sash Technician Breloom. 1, because it really helps me against Ferrothorn, and 2, it is a huge boon to offensive teams. And there is usually a standard for Sash Breloom, and it's Swords Dance with Mach Punch and Bullet Seed. But I have found a more useful tactic is to go with the Focus Punch. Just because while Breloom is so threatening, I tend to use Breloom if the opponent doesn't have a Ferrothorn. I tend to use it as my lead because, again, the Spore is so useful early game. And as a lead, Swords Dance really doesn't help out. You know, you can maybe get a dent off on something, but at that point your sash is probably broken, stuff like that. And the Focus Punch is great because I cannot tell you how many times I've led with Breloom, I've spored maybe a Politoed, and then I have Focus Punched on the switch as they go into their, let's say, Latios or Latias, and it does a huge chunk of damage. And at this point, I still have my sash up. I've done a huge damage to their Breloom check with Focus Punch, and then I can Bullet Seed as they break me down to my sash. And at that point, usually a Mach Punch will take them out. And there you have, Breloom has taken out 2 Pokemon. Really, the only thing you have to be worried about is Celebi. Celebi is pretty much a full stop to Breloom because it can sleep. It doesn't really care about sleep. Breloom's attacks won't be doing more than 20-30% to Celebi. But again, I have Scizor, and that's where I started to realize the great synergy this team has. Breloom, you know, doesn't like Celebis, and Scizor and Thundurus even can use Celebi, you know, as U-turn fodder or setup fodder. Starmie and Politoed don't like Ferrothorn, and Breloom does, and all these different things. Now, we were deciding, we left Politoed open because we didn't know if we want to do Choice Specs or Choice Scarf, and as you'll see, I do not have a Choice Scarfer here, so for me this was an easy decision. Choice Scarf. Politoed, and I usually go with Surf over Hydro Pump on a lot of things, especially Revenge Killers, just because I go for reliability. Focus Blast, Ice Beam, and this is where you have to decide what the last move you want to have. And I went for Parashong, I believe, just because, you know, let's say your opponent has a sub Dragon Dance, Roost, Dragonite as their last Pokemon, and you won't really be able to beat it, but you have Parashong. So Parashong is great against that last Pokemon that's trying to sweep you, that you're having a lot of hard time out. You know, at least it gives you a plan B with Parashong. So there you go. This was the team I made, the offensive rain team. No Keldeo, you know, doesn't have spikes. So that said, since I don't have Ferrothorn, the first thing you should notice is that the team is pretty weak to opposing Kingdras. Opposing Kingdras can, you know, utilize that water boost and their dragon typing to really hurt this team, and the only way you can, you know, the solid way to beat them is you just have to pound away at them. You just have to hit them with a move every time they come in, and then hopefully you'll be able to revenge with your priority later. And that's another cool thing about this team, is that it has double priority. You know, Politoed is a pretty good Scarfer, but it's not great. You know, it can't be revenging things like +1 Salamence, or Keldeo could. And that's where these double priority Pokemon really show their stuff. And show you, or allow you to get out of situations that maybe you couldn't have before. So that is the first team of the week. What do you guys think? I hope you enjoyed it. It wasn't as in-depth as my other team building video, because that was more to give you guys tips, and this is just to show you guys a good team. That's what it's here for. It's a showcase. I want to show you how I built a team and how it works. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I will definitely keep doing these team of the weeks. I actually have maybe two more teams that I really think are solid enough to be showcased. So be on the lookout for those. Who knows? Maybe I even do 2 in a week. You never know. If I decide to, I may just. But there you go. First official team of the week. I hope it brings you many ladder points. And that's another thing. Feel free, guys, honestly, to use this team. Maybe I'll just leave a importable of the team in the description of the video. I think I'll do that. And leave a video. Here's something. You guys have to take this team and you have to play 1 ladder game. You have to go out and try this team out on the ladder. And then leave a comment about how it did. Did you enjoy overwhelming your opponent with this offensive team? Were you able to set up agilities and nasty plots with Thundurus? Let me know. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get updates when I do more Team of the Weeks or Pokemon Showdown Live or replays of the day. And please like the video if you enjoyed it. It really helps out. So I'll see you guys next time.